Good morning once again and welcome to GMU Agenda, where we look at an issue of national concern. And today we are going to be assessing that is the education sector in this country. Yes, education is a priority for everybody and we all need education. But we need quality education, we need education that can lead to meaningful employment. The history of Uganda has it that yes, Uganda's education in the region, the standards remain high, but over time still, there's been some slightly changes in the rankings, mostly when you look at our universities and the quality of education. With me in the studios is former presidential candidate and also former Vice Chancellor, that is Makerere University, Professor Venansius Baryamureeba. Professor, glad to have you in the studios.
I'm happy to be here again.
Today we are going to be talking education.
Yes.
And knowing you with vast experience in the field of education, one would say most at a higher level of education, that is university. Today, we've concluded a year. That was, now we are in 2018. But when you look at the education system of our country, are we making improvements or are we deteriorating the quality of education being offered?
You know, one thing I've realized that most Ugandans keep using sweeping words. So the education system is not good, it's good. But you just have to look at the last maybe 5 years. We've had so many international schools open up shop here. We've had schools like Kaboja International, train people of world class to go to other countries like Canada, America, and so on. So those schools are doing well. We've also looked at traditional schools like Gayaza, Namiryango, Budo, Namagunga. They are students who live senior 6 accepted across the globe, you know. So in a way, our education at primary and secondary school level is a mixture of quality and poor quality. And most of the UPE schools are of poor quality. And to me, that was expected because the population is very, very high. You know, we have so many people who are young, who need quality education. But if the government was putting all the money that is required, it would take more than 80% of the national budget, which can't be. So maybe we need to control the population growth at that level. When it comes to tertiary education, we now have vocational institutions, we have technical institutions, and the government has been getting some grants. So some of them have been equipped, others are not yet fully equipped. We also have private institutions at varying levels of quality. So when it comes to that level of education, again, some institutions are doing very well, others are doing badly. Now, when it comes to universities, universities you have to assess them program by program. When you find a university like Makerere, some of the programs you don't want to send there your children. But it has some very good programs. You go to UCU, the same thing. You go to Mbara University, the same thing. So what is actually, maybe we need to enforce at university level is the issue of self-assessment and also external assessments, like external audits, where you get like the National Council for Education coming in with an independent body to assess program by program, the quality of staff, the quality of students, the teaching facilities, all those things that lead to a quality graduate. Also looking at the employers, because when we teach these students, they go out into the market. What are the perceptions of the employers on these graduates? That would help, you know, at national level, people to know if I want to study medicine, I should take my child to Makerere or to Mbarara. You know, if I want to study law, I should go to UCU or Makerere. If I want to study agriculture, that kind of arrangement. But at the moment, we lack that guidance.
Professor, one of the key issues why a person goes to school is to get a job.
Yes.
Today, our education system, is it offering what the market demands?
Yes and no. You see, universities are supposed to be academic by nature. So they will not train you specifically to go and start working on a given job. They'll give you the knowledge, the academic knowledge, but also give you a bit of the practical skills. It's only professional courses like medicine, like law. You can't leave a university without knowing how to do that kind of work, or like engineering. But some of the other disciplines are academic. So when, for example, you train somebody in physics, you may not train that person for a specific job, but they get the skills. When they get to the industry, then they start applying those skills and they learn on the job and so on. So again, when it comes to the lower levels, where people are supposed to live with skills, you know, like when you train people at certificate level, it's up after senior 4, they are supposed to do 80% practicals and 20% theory. So whatever they do is supposed to be practical. They're supposed to be ready for the market. When it comes to diploma, students are supposed to take on 60% practicals. That's what I used to hear in the past, that the students who study diplomas at Chambogo are better than graduates, because their curriculum is supposed to be 60%. They're supposed to have those skills, like you leave and you go and start working. But when it comes to degree level, you move to 30-40% practicals. So essentially, we need to structure our system in such a way that from primary to secondary to university, students are acquiring skills at those levels.
That brings us to the issue of connectivity, Professor. We find someone from P1 to P7 something different. Senior 1 to senior 4 relatedly different. HSC then come to university. Do we identify, do we need to change our education system so that there is connectivity? Definitely,
and that is why there have been reforms in the technical and vocational sector. They are now teaching competence-based education. Like whenever you finish a course, you must show the competences you have gained from that course. It's no longer theory. If you go to these vocational institutions, go to technical institutions that are examined by UBTEB and so on, Uganda Business Examination Board, it is competence-based. When it comes to the secondary school curriculum now, I attended a meeting before end of last year, that is in December, where the National Curriculum Development Center has come up with reforms to the curriculum. So again, aimed at ensuring that the students don't just study so many subjects, but also get skills, even at secondary school level.
We have seen government prioritizing sciences more than arts. And one would look at sciences initially, maybe because people would prefer them as difficult courses. But when you look at the world today, do we have a ready market for science courses in our country?
Yes, actually the majority of the jobs, even in the next maybe 20 years, are going to be in the area of sciences. But there is no, you can develop any country without the humanities. So what is needed is to ensure to have a clear policy and to have institutions in place, because it's not good enough to say teach sciences. Like if you say teach ICT in every school or teach physics, and people don't have what to teach physics with. You don't have qualified teachers. You don't have like workshops teach technical drawing or metalworks. Then it becomes useless. People just get theories. So to me, it's all about planning. The question is, are we ready to ensure that, let's say 70% of our young people do sciences? We are not.
You're not.
So we need to ensure there are facilities, but again, as we put in facilities in place, we have to balance. I know no country can develop without developing the humanities also. They contribute. Even engineers study social sciences, they study economics and so on. You know, doctors have to study sociology, they have to study, psychology, all that. So we really need a mixture of the two, but we need to have more of our students in the area of sciences.
Professor, many times people have spoken about our education system as lacking. You've mentioned a very important point here, that if government was to make all the changes in the education sector, maybe 80% of the national budget would have to resort to education. As a former presidential candidate, let me just take a look, when we look at this, what would be your priorities in the education sector?
You see, you cannot detach the education sector from other sectors.
Definitely.
It is important that, I'm a Catholic, and Catholics always talk about, you should not talk about this birth control and so on. But we need to control the population. You need to educate the people to say, look, you cannot have large families. People need to have an average family member of 3 people. Our population is growing so fast, and you have so many young people, so many dependents. So if you are to say education for all, like they have said in Kenya, that's what I've said here, it's not just about saying education for all. You have to say per child, what is the money required for us to educate this child? And if it is 1 million for a primary school, and you have 2 million primary school kids, you know how much money you're going to put in that sector and so on. So to me, the priorities in the education sector would be to ensure that we have quality education at varying levels. Like in each region, we can, we used to talk about 5 regions. We could increase it now to about 10 or 12 regions. And say in each region, you have at least 2 very good government schools, whether at primary, at secondary, so that the brightest students from each of those regions are able to get scholarships and get quality education. But today you find a very bright kid, let's say in Kasese, who has no access to quality school. And then we have also come up with regional universities in a way.
And who would be the, when you look at, we are now looking at your proposals.
Yes.
If you are to make reforms in the education sector, and the key is one good school in every region,
yes,
who would attend and who wouldn't?
Who wouldn't? You see, the issue is we don't have enough resources,
yes,
to ensure that you make sure that every school is world class. But it's important, like it used to be in the past. You used to have these schools like Lango College, Nyakasura, Ntare, Budo, you know,
Gayaza,
all these schools,
Namagunga.
they were there, and they were quality. A student would go to Lango knowing it's quality. Another student would go to Ntare because it's quality. It would go to Nyakasura because it's quality. You need those schools in those regions. Now ensure that you have a system of identifying talent, the good students who don't have money, and they get scholarships to go and study in those schools. Those are the ones who are going to change this country. And then you ensure that also within that region, you provide sufficient funding to ensure their schools keep coming up. But also encourage the private sector, the international community, like you see international schools here, to also open up branches
the
in each region.
Cambridges,
Yes.
the Rainbows.
They should not only be in Kampala, they should go up country and find students in those places. Because you see, for example, if an international school opened in Mbarara, it may want also to maybe teach a local language like Runyankore. And people would love that. So I would take my children to Mbarara to study there so that they can also learn Runyankore. But when it's in Kampala, you say, okay, maybe we need to teach a local language. They will teach Uganda. So you find someone like me who is from the West wants also my children study Uganda, Runyankore. They are busy studying Uganda in Kampala. So to me, having these schools up country is a good thing. And our towns have developed a bit. You can now have an international school in Mbarara, and you get students, you get clans. You can have an international school in Mbara and you get students. So there's no point of concentrating them in Kampala. Yeah.
So that would be one of your reforms, good schools.
Yes, we'd encourage them, like the way you're saying, take industries up country. We'd say, look, let us have good international schools across the country, various regions, and we'll give them incentives to do that. We'd ensure that the private sector, local private sector, is encouraged. We've seen very good private schools now, up country, not just in Kampala, coming up. We'd give them incentives to have those schools in those regions. Then also, as government, ensure that we have at least 2 schools, one for boys, one for girls, in each of those regions we have gazetted. Yeah.
Professor, is UPE and USE a reality in transforming the education sector in this country? You
see, the one thing UPE and USE has done is to ensure that everybody goes to school. Whether they get a skill is another issue. Everybody has been able to go to school if you want to. But when you visit some of the schools, they are really, really badly off. And what I'm saying that we need to improve the quality. But you see, again, you have to look at the numbers. Quality is related to the number of students in each school. Quality is related to the teachers you're going to put in each school, you know, and so on. So there are certain reforms we need to undertake. There are certain measures we have to undertake. You see, if we keep talking about becoming a middle-income country, you cannot detach middle-income country from our education system. But if we don't control birth rate, our population growth, all those things remain a myth. You can't. We will continue to talk about middle income until 2050.
What is the challenge in controlling our population?
We encouraged as a country, as a government, that people should produce as many kids as possible. When people have produced, you go to villages, people have a family of 10, others have a family of 20. When it comes to towns, you find us who have a family of 2, family of 3, but we are the minority, we are very few. So it is up to government to come up now. In Rwanda, they have said you can produce maybe 3 children. In China, remember, they said produce only 1 child. But for us, who can come out now and tell people, have a small family. It's not good for you to have a big family. Because a big family requires health care, requires education, requires other needs. And we cannot afford it. So to me, it's one of the areas we need to address as a country.
Well, we are with a former presidential candidate, also former Vice Chancellor, Makerere University, Professor Venansius Baryamureeba. As we are assessing, that is our education sector in this country, is it really providing or producing people that are needed for the job market? And what are some of the challenges, and how can we improve this sector? Professor, government or the ministry has moved in to scrap some of the subjects that is at A level, I mean at all levels, saying some are really not worth, maybe they are similar. But then, as government is moving to scrap some, we are seeing duplication of courses at our institutions of learning. Does this make sense to you?
Well, you see, I don't think the minister just wakes up and says we are scrapping courses. They put in place a team of experts to do curriculum review and make recommendations. Now the issue is, did they get the right people? That I won't answer because I'm not interacted with those people who reviewed the curriculum. But in
Here
any case,
you're
at secondary,
here you're allowing almost people at
the
university.
lower levels, I can assure you any change that comes up has some bit of improvement. It may not be that perfect, but there is some bit of improvement. Like I saw the report, I've told you the one of reviewing the secondary education system. It's a good report, you know, but it is subject to improvement, and we gave them comments. Now, when it comes to university level, it is the National Council for Education that is supposed to accredit courses or programs, and also the universities. Each university is supposed to look at itself internally and say, here we have duplications, we must eliminate them. But so it is, you look at it as a failure on part of the universities. Because you should not only wait for the National Council to come and say, no, these are duplications. The National Council does not have also the capacity to look at every course in detail. When maybe if they can computerize and ensure that all program curriculum is in an electronic system, that when you bring in your program, they put in the system and you're able to search, like the way we check for plagiarism. You're able to see that this course is similar to the other course and say we can't accredit it. And that is easy to do, but they haven't done that as of now.
Still at universities, we've seen universities being closed or even closing. Where is the problem? A university was accredited, then after some time, closure. Namasagali and others to mention.
You see, in Uganda, we have not done much in terms of training university managers. Somebody starts a university and thinks they can run it as a business. People think that anybody with a PhD can run a university. Things don't work that way. And the other thing is that, again, when the National Council licenses universities, I think the law does not empower it so much to put lots of controls. You'll find a university that has been licensed, claiming that it has maybe 10 PhD holders, it has 30 master's holders. After getting the license, ends up letting many of those go and starts using part-timers, starts using people who are not qualified. And when a program has been accredited, National Council does not normally come in before 5 years to say, we are halting this program. So I think the issue of regulation needs to be strengthened, and maybe the law needs to be amended. The regulations, they need to come up with regulations. You've seen like Busoga University saying that you cannot close us, we are going to continue operating because they're in the courts of law. But we don't have to really wait for that. What I think we need to do is for government to come in strongly through the National Council for Education and ensure that in each institution, you know, there's quality. That's why I talked about having these assessments, self-assessments, external assessments. Now, if National Council comes in and assesses and says, you don't have the quality to run this program, government should come in to support the National Council to ensure that university does not admit students. Because today, National Council can come up with a report saying, look, you should not admit students on this program. And then the university says, for us, we have gone to court or we are doing this and this, we are going to admit students. Should make it a crime, even to the extent of arresting that vice chancellor or a person in charge of that university, once you decide to violate what the National Council has come up with. Of course, people will tell you, the court is there. But the court can keep the case in court for 10 years, you know? Yet Ugandans are not getting quality education. So have sort out those issues.
Finally, Professor, education is a right to everybody.
Yeah.
Today in Uganda, there is a saying, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. But we've seen government in the recent, that was last year, towards the close of last year, that is the permanent secretary, that is Minister of Education and Sports, came up and issued a circular urging, in fact, it is a directive to schools not to increase school fees this year unless they have sought, unless there's a process followed. Education is increasingly becoming expensive. What can be done for the maybe child of the less privileged also to study up to university? Government will make it UPE, universal primary, universal secondary, but then the fee at university, and even here, what would be the solution?
You see, the solution goes back to planning. I think it's unfair for private institutions, because private institutions are for profit. You should be able to allow market forces operate. You should allow them to charge the fees they would like to charge. And then when it comes to government institutions, government should have a cap on what they can charge. Because if it's government institutions, you're getting funding from government, and you're also allowed to maybe through this cost sharing, charge some PTA money, you know? So that one should be controlled.
Because you go to a UPE school,
Yes.
When you go to Nakasero, you go to Nachivobru, around here, they will tell you the PTA agreed that every child, the parent maybe pays 50,000 for lunch. But there is a gentleman, there is a family that has 6 children. Now 6 times 50. Still it goes up to
600.
To 6. You know, it goes to a big figure for this parent.
Even in some places, it's much higher than that. And that's the whole point of, like, you find somebody in the village who does not have even 50,000 shillings on an account, having 10 children, and all of them have to go to school. You know? So to me, it's what we talked about. First of all, control the family sizes, but also don't kill the quality of education. Because if you put a cap on private institutions, then we shall miss out on good quality institutions. That is why international schools are charging $2,000, $3,000, because that's what they require to train somebody at that level. Even nursery, primary, secondary, they charge that amount because they are bringing high quality teachers. The cost of staff, cost, materials, and so on is high. So for us to be able to have a mixture of education that is of quality, medium, and very poor quality, you allow some of the private institutions to charge highly, that they can provide quality education. You allow some government institutions, I'm calling it like regional institutions, to charge slightly higher PTA so that they can provide quality education, but also have a provision of providing scholarships to the bright students. And again, have these other institutions also for general education for most of these lower class.
That offer which kind of it?
Yes, they offer what they can offer as we try to improve along the way. But in the process of that, if there is somebody who is very, very, very poor and is very bright, those should be pulled out and taken to the other high-end institutions. Because we cannot avoid having institutions that are so poor. Even when you go to America, you'll find colleges that are so poor. You say, is this a college in America? But if you go to Germany, Finland, you know, like Norway, Sweden, almost all the institutions are the same level.
Well, Professor, it's been nice having you part of the show. From the rest of the team, Robert Chirabo wishing you a lovely day. Up next is Business Today, and please stay with us. Good morning.